Freedom fighters, I'm coming back at you with another weekly roundup where we talk about the news and current events and everything that's going on. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the whole Trump Zelenskyy meeting. Even though that was last week, I didn't get to that point because it hadn't happened yet. I make these videos usually early in the morning. I'm coming at you, early in the morning, and then by the time I edit it and update or upload and all that stuff, I usually post these, a little later towards night. I try to get it kind of like prime time, news, 7, 8 p.m., something like that. Um, so yeah, that didn't happen yet, but we all know by now where Trump and Zelensky had it out in the Oval Office with Vance and all that. And he's since he got kicked out of the White House, and they said, oh, there's no deal. Trump told him to come back when he wants peace, but um, peace is, I guess, a subjective term, or how you view how peace is going to be achieved. But he since said, you know what, we're at the table, we're willing to sign the deal, and then all these European countries backed him because they hate Trump. They hate the right wing essentially. They said, oh no, we can't backstab our ally, and we have to. So they all came to the table and basically backstabbed America and said, oh no, America's turning their back on our ally Ukraine, so we need to step up because they don't actually want peace. By backing Zelensky and by saying that, we're going to provide arms and money so they can fight off Russia, that's not peace. That's not coming to the table on an agreement on territories or minerals or whatever they're fighting over. It's always a fight over something, which is a video I wanted to get to sometime in the future. We all know the Middle Eastern oil wars, and now the next big thing is the rare earth minerals. Ukraine has a lot of farmland and stuff like that, but they want to keep the war going. So, it was like the UK Prime Minister or whatever, Starmer, came out and said that they're stepping up their arms and their aid, their relief money. I think they pledged like $800 billion. All these other European countries said, I think it was Germany that said they were providing more arms. France, I can't remember if that was Macron that said that they were actually getting ready to not only give more money, they're all giving more money, but one of them said that they were actually like readying troops on the ground in Ukraine, and all of Europe is pretty much gearing up for war. I mean, you look at all the moves being made, and you could tell, Europe is at war. The world is at war. We've talked, ad nauseum of, World War III is coming, and they want World War III, and World War III ain't coming. It's here, and all the stuff you're seeing. And then Trump gave his congressional address where he said, he's adding the tariffs and all that. And then Trudeau came out and said that, we're acting in kind and putting more tariffs on them, which Trump said whatever they add to the tariffs, we're just going to add back. So if they say, okay, well, you want to tariff 25%, we're going to put you at 25%. Well, then Trump said, we'll just add another 25% to make up for it. So then you'll be taxed at 50%. And, if you want to keep playing that game, we'll just keep going. And, Trudeau was like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to continue booing your anthem. And, where he said, we're not booing the American people or your sports teams or whatever it is. It's basically a protest to your government, which again, I never understood why we're all allied with these people who hate us and why we're expected to, defend Europe and Canada and basically all these cucked leftist Western countries. Essentially, I mean, that's what they are. All our allies, we're pretty much surrounded by liberals. That's what it is. That's what all these countries are, and we're suspected like to fund them and basically run their countries, which is a point I made in a previous video where Nick from America First made a great point where he was always anti-Israel. He would always be like, we just need to, wipe our hands clean and walk away. Just leave, Israel alone. Just walk away from them. And then he came to the conclusion later on. He was like, no, we actually need to, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like co-opt or annex Israel. They basically need to become a vassal state, um, and become like the 51st state. They basically need to become America, which is where I think the way of the world is actually headed. I think eventually everything's going to be part of the big three. Like you're either going to be a vassal state of America, or you're going to be a vassal of Russia or a vassal of China. And he was saying we basically need to bring Israel to heel. They need to become, they capitulate to America. And I mentioned before how all these countries, we work for these other countries. The American people are tired of being the tax cattle and the slave, class for the world. Always playing the world police, and all our taxes go to, supposedly, this is an air quote, saving the world, you know? And we're tired of it. And we're not doing that crap anymore. And obviously Doge came out and find out all these, spending. We're sending, condoms to Gaza and building walls for Jordan and all these other countries, transgender um, studies in Guatemala and all this crap. And that's what you're paying for. But, Israel in specifics, like, we fund everything. We give them the Iron Dome, complete protection, all the money and weapons they want. We pay for their citizens, their health care, their education, um, and basically fund their whole lifestyle. Which and they're allowed to be an ethno state. They're allowed to go out and commit genocide and um, purge, anyone who's not of their liking, all on the American behalf of the American tax dollar. And it's like, no, it needs to be the other way around. If we're gonna fund this, if we're gonna fund a country, it needs to be the other way around. They need to be paying for our stuff, paying for our health care, paying for our citizens' education, not the other way around. It's like, who's working for who? Who's benefiting in the relationship? If we're protecting you, paying you, giving you health care and education, yet at the end of the day we bend to your will when it's time to do stuff, it's like, where's the beneficial relationship? Recently, they were talking about South American aid and, all these countries. And El Salvador actually came out and said, well, they're building like a huge prison system because they're arresting, all these gang member, criminals. A lot of these countries, when we deport them, they send them back, or they refuse transport. They're like, we're not taking these people. So again, it's like, what are we sending you money for? But El Salvador actually said, we're building a huge prison system, basically Guantanamo Bay 2.0. And not only can you send, the deported El Salvadorians, you can send American criminals, you can send, foreign criminals, whatever. We're basically gonna, build the system, which is, at least it's something in return. It's a trade. If we're gonna be sending you money or helping your economy or defending you, We need something in return. The day of just blank checks or one sided trade deals isn't going to work. Where, well, China now came into it too the other day and said that they're ready for any kind of war against the United States. Again, because the tariffs were placed, and I mean, it's essentially a trade war, but they added that any kind of war on the back of it because trade wars ultimately turn into physical wars. You know, these countries, um, they've been making bank, um, time and time again. And it all goes back to this, where I said, I've had problems with the capitalistic corporate greed system for a while, where, these companies are making money hand over fist. Um, and, especially during the COVID times, they're like, well, prices are rising and, gas and, uh, the product, the wheat, the sugar, all the stuff, the contents are rising, so we need to raise our prices. And they acted like they were struggling, all while reaping in record profits. No, the people who were struggling was you and I. That's who was struggling. And these corporations were acting like, oh, we're taking a hit, yet they were still making billions of dollars of profit. And then whenever they don't, this is the biggest problem I have. If they don't meet their quotas or their marks every year, and one year, again, it's still profit. They're still in the profit zone. Like, say one year they make $20 billion in revenue, or profit, not revenue, but profit. And then the next year they make 18 billion. So technically they were 2 billion short of last year's profit. They say, "Oh no, we're losing." Where every year has to be growth, and then they say we need to make cuts. And where do the cuts come from? You and I. They either raise prices or they do layoffs, and they fire the bottom dweller worker. The cashier, the guy stocking the shelves, driving the trucks, whatever, who's just surviving off of, a minimum 12, 14, $15 an hour wage. And they're like, oh no, we need to get our profits back up. Essentially, that's what these countries do. But on another level, man, they're raking trillions of dollars. Trillions upon trillions of dollars these countries are raking in. But if you threaten even a little small portion of it, and another country says, all these trade deals are too one sided, you're getting way too much for, whatever you're providing, or we're not getting enough out of this deal, and we're gonna put, some taxes on it, 25% even, they're not gonna have that. And they're gonna pass it on to you and I. And again, they're going to complain like they're struggling, or they're the ones with the problems. But essentially, where this is all leading to is civil unrest, within these countries. And Europe is in big trouble. Um, Especially with the demographic situation going on there, and basically not having any freedom. So, you don't have any arms or anything like that, in these European countries. There is definitely going to be civil unrest, and I've said it before. A lot of people have said it, that civil war has been brewing in Europe for a while, and they're going to feel that, especially when their economies get hit even harder than it already is. And the government again is going to put the prices on that stuff even higher. The people are going to be forced against each other. There's going to be wars popping off everywhere. Heck, right here in the northern hemisphere, we talked about Canada and all these people, booing the national anthem, taking items off the shelves. The animosity is growing between everyone. Amongst allies. There's talk about dismantling NATO, and all the not the UN, But yeah, NATO and all, the ally countries, everyone's at everyone's throat, right? And this is, it's just the writing on the wall, man. World War III ain't coming, it's here. And who knows what the realignment's going to be like, who's going to side with who. This is kind of another thing where we have to, be careful who we alienate. But then again, it's like, who do we side with? Because nobody is like America. Nobody is like Americans. And I know everyone's like, oh, well, the British and all this, we're from British stock, and it's like, but those Britons, the George Washingtons, aren't still living in Britain. Those free minded, rugged individuals that came and formed America are all left and gone out of Europe because they saw the writing on the wall long ago, living under tyranny and all that. Obviously, the revolution, people have migrated from there since then. If you're still in Europe at this point, and you have any freedom-minded beliefs, you're getting thrown in prison for wrongthink on the internet. So, to be like, oh yeah, there are, long lost ancestors and we're the same. No, we're not the same. Same with like Canada. It's like, oh, they're our neighbors and, they just live just north of us and we're like the same people. No, we're totally different. Just look at their rights and look at their beliefs, man. Time and time again, they vote for hardcore leftists, and even their right-wing politicians are just, McCain light, rhinos. But man, that's my geopolitical analysis for the week and everything going on. Let me know what you think. And that you know what it is, man. We are on our own. Nobody's coming to save us. Only God can save you. So get right with God. Freedom Fighters out.